PhD Central Luzon University in the Philippines. He will speak about industrialization in Indonesia, and the presenter will actually be two persons, who are Professor Didik and Mas Andri, who is a researcher at Indep, specializing on trade and industry. Without any further ado, I will give Prof. Didik and Pak Andri platform to speak. Please start, Prof.
Okay, good day, South Korea, Busan, and good morning, Jakarta. Yeah. Actually, I want to know the participant who are offline in person. Yeah. May Zulfikar, may you introduce our participant from Korean Institute of Asian Studies?
Okay, Prof. We have Professor Kim Dong-yuk here, who is the director of KIAS. And then we have a number of research assistants. We have Sol here, Iliana here, and a number of other participants.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Actually, in the School of Political Economy, this program is a less formal or non-formal forum for young researchers, yeah, especially Indonesian students and Indonesians who study about ASEAN, Indonesia, and so on. Yeah. And then we did already in many cities all over the world, yeah, in Moscow, yeah, in UK, Netherlands, and then Australia, Jakarta, Bali, and so on. Yeah. So this is actually designed for offline, not online, and very, very limited persons. Yeah. Because not only we are not only capturing, yeah, discussing the data, but also developing a network. Yeah. After this, maybe Korean Institute for Asian Studies, yeah, should come to Jakarta to make some discussion, working together, research together, and so on. So this actually the original design of the in-depth School of Political Economy. Yeah, there are already almost 100 members of this school. Yeah, including Dr. Zulfikar. Yeah, a very prominent young person. And this will shape the future of Indonesian network with other countries like Korea. Yeah. The first, I would like to apologize because I canceled my ticket. Yeah, I got already visa, and then I got flu. Yeah, on already 1 week. Yeah, and then my voice disappearing now. Yeah, that's why I invite Andri, yeah, economist researcher from Indep, yeah, to help me. Yeah. But I would like to start with my own speech, yeah. Then maybe I will summarize a little bit in Bahasa. I'm sorry. Let I start my PowerPoint, yeah.
We can share it for you, Prof.
I will share with my own because this is the last version.
Yeah. Stop.
No. You out apa? Apa ini?
Stop, sir.
Bukan punya. You know, I will share some minutes, yeah. And then Andri, yeah. I will share my with. Give me access, yeah. Already, Zulfikar.
Wait, Prof.
Fikar, namanya ketua itu di apa, dikirim deh namanya, saya mau saya sapa.
Iya, Prof.
Can you see my simple PowerPoint ya?
Yes, Prof.
Bisa dilihat Fikar ya?
Bisa, Prof.
Bisa, ya. I follow, sorry, just few minutes.
Okay.
I follow the speech of Professor Lee, ya, before me.
Yes.
Yeah, I follow all the, not all, yeah, a part of the speech of Professor Lee, yeah, about transformation of Korean economy, Korean economy during the crisis 1998, yeah, and then following by the explanation of facing the crisis COVID-19, yeah, COVID-19, yeah. That's the way of Korean economy, Korean government to tackle, to handle any crisis. And then now South Korea, the poor country like Indonesia in 1950s, very poor, only 200, 300 dollars per capita income in 1950, 1960, but now jumping, yeah, growing very fast, and then now part of the large economy in G20, yeah. Even Indonesia, part of G20, but the income per capita of Korea and Indonesia very much different, yeah, because our population in the countryside could not reach the access, yeah, reach the access to technology, yeah, financing, and so on. So disparity in Indonesia is much higher and much harder to develop like South Korea, yeah. What was the explanation of Professor Lee before? It is almost the same what I want to mention, yeah. The story about the financial policy, banking policy, and so on. That's the way of the government to support industry and to export, yeah. And then Korea in the table, yeah, in the graphic of Prof. Lee before, yeah, Korea growing 8%, yeah, 7%, yeah, making Indonesia become advanced country, yeah, and now a part of G20, yeah. How about Indonesia? This is my question, the same as why during 1980s and 1990s economic growth of Indonesia is 7% and even more, yeah. And then why next decade only 5%, yeah. The answer is explanation of Professor Lee before, yeah. Reform, yeah, deregulation, yeah, and then supporting institution like custom, yeah, to promote export, yeah, debureaucratization, and so on. Yeah? That's all the policy that have been done by South Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Singapore, and so on. Yeah. So you see this. This is the picture of Indonesian economy. Sorry, it's in Bahasa Indonesia, but I will explain in English. Yeah. You know this graph, this picture start in 1961, yeah, and the end in 2020, yeah, the beginning of 2020. You know, in 1960, during the revolution, communist revolution, communist coup, Indonesian economy growing only 0.101%. Yeah? And then after that, after new order government, yeah, the economy growing 7%, and then crisis in 1982, yeah, crisis after 1982 because of drop of oil price, then come back to the 7, yeah, and then after that, yeah, after that crisis 1998, we never come back to growth 7% lah. Like explanation from Professor Lee, you know, after crisis 1998, yeah, Korea growing also very fast again, like before, yeah. So the answer of this question, yeah, why? Because of industry and export, yeah. That's the answer, yeah. Yeah, the answer is industry, but the problem is the industry of Indonesia only the medium products, not final product like South Korea, car industry and so on. Yeah, we export only crude palm oil. We export only some furniture product and so on. Yeah, but the industry and export is the main answer of that question. Yeah, you know, after 2000, yeah, after 1998, yeah, our portion, yeah, Indonesian industry portion in the GDP growing from less than 10%, only 6.5% in 1960. This is the poor country, yeah, like Korea before, only industry 6%, and then growing very, very fast up to 1998, where the industry, yeah, the portion in GDP, almost 30%. But after that, down, yeah. During the 1990s and 1980s, yeah, if the economic growth 7%, then the industry growing double digit, industrial growth double digit, yeah, 10%, 12%, and so on. Yeah. And the export at that time is 20%, 24%, and so on. That's because the government designing economy, deregulation, restructuring, debureaucratization, you know, make the situation and environment efficient for the business and industry. After that, we come to the era of 2000, yeah, 2000, 2010, and so on, yeah. And then the industry growing only 3-4%. So because industry growing, yeah, growth industry was growing only 3-4%, economic growth only 4-5%. Yeah. So very difficult for Indonesia to increase income per capita, yeah, at least the same of Malaysia, not following Korea. Yeah. So this is the key for Indonesian prosperity. Income per capita is the industry. Yeah. Unlike Qatar, yeah, or Singapore, yeah, enough with the services like banking, yeah, trading, and so on. But Indonesia, impossible without the strong industry. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the issue that we have to discuss. Yeah. I don't want to explain later, but because my voice disappeared now. Yeah. You see, this is from 1980s to 2020. Yeah. Manufacturing value added of Indonesia, the blue one, yeah, growing up to 1998, yeah, and then down again in 2000, yeah, 2020, 2010, and so on, yeah. Yeah, okay, this is in ASEAN especially, yeah. And then manufacturing, oh sorry, this is double, yeah. Oh sorry, this is double, okay. Oh, sorry, this is Indonesian language, yeah. This is also the growth of industry, yeah, in Indonesia 2014-2020. So this is the result relation between industrial growth and the income per capita. Yeah, yeah. During the economic growth, industry is growing very fast. Yeah, Indonesia moved from low middle income to little bit middle income. Yeah, but after that, within Joko Widodo, 8 years, yeah, there is no increase in income per capita because of the economic growth, industry, and so on, having a problem. Yeah. So I mentioned before, impossible for the country like Indonesia with almost 300 million people, yeah, without strong industry. Yeah. Impossible. We are growing the services industry like education only, and then banking and trading and other services. Industry must be the backbone of the economy. Without that, yeah, income per capita of Indonesia will be maybe 5,000, 6,000. That will be the problem, and we will go to the middle income trap. Yeah, what is middle income trap? Yeah, a lot of portion of the people could not move to the prosperity. Yeah, and then there are a lot of unemployment, underemployment, poor people in the countryside, and so on. Yeah, we have to move to like South Korea. Yeah, now more than 30,000 US dollar. Yeah, but Korea easier because the smaller population and smaller area, but Indonesia must be a growing industry as the backbone, not only in Java, center of industry, yeah, and more closely only Jabodetabek, yeah, in Jabodetabek, in Cikarang only, a very small area. In that area is produce 1 million car, yeah, in that area, and then this in Java, it is also in that area is produce almost 10 million motorcycle. Yeah. This centralized in Java. Yeah. So if we decentralize outside Java, that will be good, yeah, and decrease disparity between Java and outside Java. Yeah. Okay, what will be the next? Yeah, sorry, in Bahasa Indonesia. We have the future. Yeah, the future, the giant industry. We are losing 2 or 3 opportunity given by the God. Yeah, the first plywood. Yeah, it was exported, not plywood only, not industry, not value added industry, exported to Japan, to Korea, and so on. Yeah. But no stop because of forest critical for environment. Yeah, and then we have rattan, we have oil. Yeah, and then we have oil, but we have imported oil for our car. Yeah, so we don't have the industry, yeah, for that. Yeah, so the future nickel is our future industry. Yeah, you see in Indonesia we have almost 1/3, yeah, of the deposit of the world. Yeah, the other United States only have 1% deposit. Yeah, Australia 8%, and then the Philippines 12%. Yeah, China is 5%. So this is monopoly by Indonesia, and then we ban the nickel, yeah, for the sake of Indonesian economy, of Indonesian industry. It must be processed here, unlike Freeport before, yeah. But now challenged by World Trade Organization, yeah. So this is the future industry that we have to tackle, to make Indonesia jumping higher and higher income per capita, or more advanced as before. Yeah, and this is the location. Only China monopolize this nickel. Yeah, and then there are some criticism from Faisal Basri, Indef, and so on. Yeah, because we got only small portion of the value added in the nickel industry. Yeah, so this is can be discussed in the next session, or next answer. Yeah, question and answer. Yeah. So I would like to summarize in Bahasa Indonesia for the participant of Indonesia. Jadi industri kita itu bisa mendukung ekonomi 7%, karena didorong dengan desain yang baik tahun 80-an 90-an. Kemudian setelah itu tahun 2000 kita industrinya turun, hanya pertumbuhannya 3%, 4%, ya itu tidak cukup mendukung pertumbuhan ekonomi. Ya. Tapi ada resource-based industry seperti nikel, ini akan menjadi industri masa depan kita ya. Sorry, that's my speech ya, short speech. Then Andri will add some additional, but I respect all discussion by Professor Lee. Yeah. I remember 35 years ago, I was trained informally like this in Seoul. Yeah. At that times, yeah, all professors in the classroom mentioned to me, to the participant, yeah, we are now Korea. Yeah. We are now the 7th largest trading nation in the world, yeah, with the strong voice, yeah, meaning the Korea now part of the advanced country in the world, yeah. What was that time the export of Korea? 100 billion. And then Korea become a very dynamic country, yeah, penetrating market all over the world, yeah, Europe, America, Asia, and so on, yeah. But now, how much the export of Korea to the world, yeah, I think if I don't forget, it's almost, yeah, Professor, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, almost 700 billion US dollar, yeah, 700% larger than 30 years ago, yeah. Thank you very much, yeah. Andri will continue this. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Mas Henry, you can continue.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Azulbekar? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Didik, for the introductions, and thank you for Professor Lee for the explanations of the Korea economy. Azulbekar, could you please share my slides?
Okay, wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it, but could you please do the full screen? Okay, perfect. So thank you once again, Korea and Sun. I will start the presentations about the industrialization landscape in Indonesia. The next slide, please. So I try to ask first how important is the manufacturing in Indonesia. If we look at the economy structure in Indonesia, the manufacturing has the largest share. As you can see, this is the data from the 2021 that the manufacturing has the largest share, and followed by the trade sectors and agricultures, constructions, and then the mining sectors. But when it was in 2021, we saw that the biggest sectoral growth was in health services and the transportations. And the growth in the trade sectors is still higher than manufacturing, and even higher than our GDP in the 2021. Next slides, please. Yeah. If you look, apologies for this is still in the Bahasa, but I will try to explain in English. So if you look at the tax revenue, the manufacturing also has high tax shares. tax originating from the manufacturing industries are quite high. As you can see, it's in 20.1%. But when COVID-19 hit Indonesia, industrial performance declined and tax revenues were directly affected by this decline in performance. Next slide, please. So we see that although our manufacturing shares is quite high, but when we see compared to other sectors, our agricultural sector is still high in terms of workers. So many workers work in the agriculture and trade sectors. Then 14% of workers work in manufacturing industry. However, if we look at the growth in 2022, the highest growth will be in the agricultural sector, not in the sectors such as not in sectors like tradable sectors like manufacturing. So now in Indonesia is now facing problem that the share of the GDP in the agriculture sector is decreasing, but the numbers of workers in the sectors continues to increase. So there are two things I think that drive this. The first is maybe the human resource capabilities that we have. Many of them work that have backgrounds, the educational backgrounds below the high school or the university. The second is we still rely on the natural resource-based sector as our economic engine growth. The higher those who work in the manufacturing sector, when we look at the share of the manufacturing years by years is decreased. Next slide, please. All our countries, I think, are currently experiencing deindustrialization. Next slide, please. So this is the graph that shows that when we compare, the red line is Indonesia, when we compare to its peers and also compared to the advanced economies. So all the countries, as we can see, are currently experiencing deindustrialization. But yeah, the world is experiencing in shifting economy from the manufacturing to services. But if we look at the Indonesia is experiencing the fastest decline compared to other countries. Since the reform era, the country's economy has shifted to service sectors. So this is the problem is our industry is still not strong enough to shift from the manufacturing to services, and it has not yet reached its optimal conditions. But the focus of the industry is shifting rapidly to the service sector, and this is also applies to workers, and many of whom also work in the service sector. Maybe many of you familiar with the Gojek. Many our workers who do not have high skills prefer to become the Gojek drivers, maybe, rather than work in the labor-intensive manufacturing sectors. So next slide, please. So the share to GDP for the manufacturing sector has decreased, and we see that also our manufacturing exports are also low. There are several factors here. Maybe the factors that Indonesia has a large population. So a large population means a large number of consumers as well. So why bother to export our products while we can market them domestically? So this is the first factor. Another factor is that our products may not be good enough quality to meet the export standards. In another sense, maybe our products are not competitive enough in the export market. Next slide. So likewise, when it comes to high-tech manufacturing products, we are also only better than countries like Brazil and South Africa. I think a lot of the products that are produced in South Korea are a lot of high-tech products. I saw earlier Professor Lee's presentations present how the lesson learned we got from the South Korea with high technology products like LG. And I think the producing high-tech products in certainly good for a country. This will increase our income per capita as well as spillover effects and multiplier effects, which are also high compared to producing low-tech products. Next slide. So this is, if we look at the medium high-tech exports, Indonesia's performance is lower than the other countries. So even with Indonesians peers countries like Brazil or South Africa, this means that most of the high-tech manufacturing products are marketed domestically rather than export. So if we imagine that there are investment coming to Indonesia and producing products with high technology, then the majority of them will produce products that will be marketed domestically rather than exported. So let's see other experience that from the other countries. Next slide. So in 2010, the Vietnam exports were dominated by the natural resource-based products. We see crude petroleum in the left side. And we see crude petroleum, rice, leather, footwear. But we will see export when we see export in 2020. The majority of which are high-tech products like broadcasting equipment, telephones, integrated circuits, and so on. We see that in just 10 years, Vietnam's export structure can change drastically. So this is the Vietnam's phenomenon. But this is not the case in Indonesia. Next slide. In Indonesia, export in 2010 and 2020 are more or less the same, right? Our exports are still driven by two things, based on coal and palm oil. So believe it or not, if there is a disruptions in these two commodities, then our exports will fall as well as our economy will. And many entrepreneurs, business actors, or even government officials have often intersect and related to these commodities. So it's only the difference is it's only in the crude petroleum, right? Because it's more and more less than previous years. So the question is, do the countries that rich in natural resource face the same thing? Next slide, please. So I try to see with Brazil. So the countries with the rich natural resource like Indonesia also experience the same thing. So for the 10 years, the complexity of exports has not changed and still relies on natural resource commodities. The next question is this resource curse so that it will become a time bomb when natural resources are getting less and less? Or is this a real an advantage mentioned earlier by Professor Didik that God has given to a country so that a country doesn't need to bother investing in machineries or high-skilled human resource to develop its manufacturing sectors? Next slide, please. So as you can see in this graph, the COVID-19 has had an impact on Indonesian manufacturing. This graph shows that our manufacturing performance has still not returned to the pre-pandemic growth. We see that the triangle, it's growth in 2021, and the circle one is growth before the pandemic. We see that the Indonesian industrial growth or manufacturing growth is still lower than before the pandemic. And then the rest of the world has had higher growth after the pandemic than before the pandemic. So we experienced the slow recovery for our manufacturing performance. Next slide, please. So this is the graph that tell us about the Indonesian manufacturing shifting in growth and value pre and post pandemic. So I try to divide by manufacturing subsector into 4 quadrants. Apologize, the sector is still in Indonesian, but I'll try to explain it to you. So the top right corner is the, as we can see, the high GDP sectoral output as well as its growth. So for example, it's kimia, farmasi, and obat tradisional, means the chemical, pharmaceuticals, and traditional medicines industry. It has a high value and high growth, meaning that the post-pandemic conditions have high growth and high value. Meanwhile, in like the top left corner, the automotive or transportations, or it's in the graph is alat angkutan. The automotive or transportations industry has high growth differences of the up to 20%, meaning that the growth is high, but it still cannot reach the conditions with the output before the pandemic. So the worst is the bottom left corner. As you can see, the bottom in the left corner is textile and apparels. Textile dan pakaian jadi, textile and apparel. So this sector has minus growth and minus value or output as well. So this means that the subsectors has not yet recovered and has even tended to decline after the pandemic. This is why some times ago, maybe our colleague from Indonesia heard about the mass layoff in the textile and apparel subsectors, because these conditions, the condition is still it's becoming worse after the pandemic. So next slide, please. To understand manufacturing in Indonesia is actually quite simple, right? There are 5 leading industry in the manufacturing sectors. So the food and beverage, chemical and pharmaceuticals, electronics, and also computers, textiles and apparels. And then the last one is automotive or transportations equipment. So these are 5 leading sectors. The sector has at least more than 50% share of the manufacturing sector as a whole. So if you want the manufacturing sector to have high performance or high growth, and then improve the economic performance, then you can support these 5 leading industries. So the next slide, I think the two of these 5 leading industries absorb a large workforce of up to 7%. So this figure is quite high. The rest are the sectors that require high technology, like the pharmaceuticals, electronics, transport, or automotive. So the two out of 5 leading industries are the labor intensive. So let's jump to each subsector. Next slide, please. So yeah, the first is food and beverage. We see the share of our the share of the food beverage to our economy is up to 38.1%. This subsector is the highest compared to the other 4 leading industry, right? So this subsector is also considered the advanced sectors and adaptive to the technology. Also has a high captive market. So Indonesian people like to eat and are often not suitable with food and beverage products that produce from other Indonesia, from other outside Indonesia. For example, many Indonesians prefer Indomie over instant Korean noodles or Japan noodles, right? So it has the captive market in here. So on the other hand, much of this subsector is also driven by the palm oil processing industry. So perhaps around 30% with the subsector is the palm oil processing industries. So until now, the growth of the food and beverage industry has not returned to pre-pandemic conditions. One of the factors causing its slow performance is due to the several restrictive policies issued by the previous Minister of Trade, which encouraged growth in the sector, which was still not optimal. So the previous Minister of Trade has been reshuffled because of these policies and replaced by Professor Didik's friend, Pak Zulkifli Hasan. So yeah, this is the food and beverage industry profile. Next slide, please. Sorry, I have to turn my headset because it's so. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So unlike food and beverages, the other 4 leading industry has a share of no more than 15%. So the share of the chemical and pharmaceutical industry is only 11.5% of total manufacturing, right? One of the reasons of its high growth also is the performance of the health sector that has increased during the pandemic and up until now. Next slide, please. So the next one is textile, and textile products or apparel. So we see that the share is only 6.1%. Currently, the problem with our textile industry is that it is difficult to compete with newly industrialized countries like Bangladesh, which currently has a low cost for
producing textiles. When textiles products from Bangladesh are face to face with our textile products, the products from Indonesia will lose and even difficult to absorb in the domestic market. Even though the quality of our products that we produce is better than the products from the Bangladesh or maybe Vietnam. So when we try to encourage our products to be exported, we also lost with other countries in terms of quality, that maybe maybe like China will lose in the export market. So not only it is difficult for textile industries to compete, but at the retail level, so many of the retail players which are currently dominating in Indonesia for the upper middle class sections, even came from countries like Japan, Sweden, Spain, like Japan, like Uniqlo, H&M, and Zara. Most of them are from other countries. Like difficult to see Ramayana or Matahari in Indonesia. So that's the what happened in our textile and textile products. Next slide, please. So this is the electronics. So the electronics is also have the low share in manufacturing in Indonesia. It's not high like food and beverage, below 10%, and the pattern is year by year it's decreased. Next slide, please. So I try to make it fast as possible. So this is the transportations or the automotive sectors. The automotive sectors, when we look at the growth, it's relatively back to or maybe not back to normal, but it has the growth much higher than the before the pandemic. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I try to describe maybe the current industrial policies that we might experience in Indonesia. But before going there, let me try to convey that currently one of the global industrialization trend is reshoring. Some countries, like US, for instance, wants to bring back their companies from outside of the US. So instead of try to offshoring, they want to reshoring back to US. The reasons I think are simple. One of which is because the pandemic has disrupted global supply chains. The US faced difficulties, for instance, in obtaining semiconductors, partly because they are expensive and time-consuming to obtain it. So the difficulty of obtaining these semiconductors or chipset has encouraged companies to develop their parts independently. So such as companies like Apple, now, for example, for the MacBook, now they don't work with Intel anymore for their chips, but instead develop their own chips, Apple silicons like M1 and M2. This is because the delay of the produce to produce the chipset from the Intel. So US has Intel, which currently has a large production base in Taiwan and wants to move the semiconductor production base to US. So the US even provides additional incentive through the CHIPS Act. You can see in the left corner, bottom corner. So they want to provide tax subsidies to Intel. But the question is whether the US can produce the cheaper and more affordable chipset products. Because some analysts say that even if the government provides incentives through the CHIPS Act, Intel chipset productions in the US will not be cheaper or affordable than those produced in Asia like Taiwan. So this is the hype of the reshoring. Another phenomenon is friendshoring. So or maybe ally shoring. So this term was popularized by Janet Yellen when she was in Korea, and her speech in the Science Park. She has reiterated the need for the US and its trusted trading partners to boost supply chains resilience through friendshoring. But in her speech, she said that the term of the friendshoring is the concept from the onshoring and nearshoring, so which refers to transferring the supply chain back home, closer to home, and friendshoring goes beyond that, but maybe limits the supply chain networks to allies and friendly countries. And since the war between Ukraine and Russia, that the globalizations and the global patterns of industrializations has changed. I think Dr. Sulfikar knows this, that the era of multilateralism, globalization is starting to fade. WTO did not have a spurt during the pandemic when the pharmaceutical industry monopolized the market. China, which dominates the market of raw materials and machinery, is starting to have an impact to all countries in the world when the pandemic hits. One of the container ships that are stuck in Suez canals also made the disruptions of trade, and these situations has prompted the industrial policies in several countries to start looking inward compared to outward-looking policies. So even the G20 cannot overcome this because the G7 also they have agreed not to make peace with Russia. So next time we look at the consequences of this action. I don't know, maybe next presidencies in India have a challenge to bring up the G7 and non-G7 countries back together to push the anti-agenda. Next slide, please. So in Indonesia, the debate is what Prof. Didik mentioned earlier, is about the downstreaming policies, or the term is hilirisasi. And another thing is the concept of global value chain. So do you want to downstreaming? I don't know if is there any terms for hilirisasi, because downstreaming policy is not common in industrial policies, but this is what happens in Indonesia. So you want to do you want to produce the end-to-end supply chains, or you want to part of supply chains, the global supply chains? So this is interesting because Indonesia wants to dominate the end-to-end supply chains, like in the right side. So when we talk about the electric vehicles, you want to mine the nickel, process it through smelters, produce batteries, produce the cars, charging stations, and all the ecosystems that support it. So end-to-end supply chains. This is because the hope is that Indonesia will get added value from the downstreaming policies, higher value added from the downstreaming policies. But the question is whether Indonesia can produce affordable products so that they can compete with other products, or the consequences of this policy that can control the end-to-end supply chain is maybe will be produce the expensive products. So because it's expensive, then they couldn't compete with other products. So basically they produce the expensive product. This is what we try to prevent from the end-to-end supply chain. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So what's next? This is my last slide. So what's next for Indonesian manufacturing sector? What is the challenges? So we have quite a lot of problems to improve the performance of our industry. And in my opinion, what we'll still need to solve are the regulatory and institutional issues. So the study from Bapenas found out that the regulations and institutions are the most binding constraint to growth, especially if we talk about the investment and industrial performance. So the existing regulations do not support the business creations, and development tend to restrictive. The institutions here refer to the settings that produce those regulations, right? So the lack of strategic alignment, weak supervisions, overlapping institutional responsibility. So, and also points out the corruptions and the bureaucratic inefficiency. This conclusion was a common theme, not only with the private business, but also in social sectors like the health and education. So, and also, if we talk about the policies and regulations, in industrial policies in Indonesia still using the old roadmap, Ripin, the industrializations plan, which based on the 2015. When we look now, we need the upgrade version of Ripin, because we've gone through several crises like pandemic and also the geopolitical crisis. So we don't want to changing leader means changing policies. We don't want that. we want to stable conditions, make it less uncertainty for the industrial players. Another thing is scattered strategy. So downstreaming, or you want to import substitutions, which is what, in my opinion, is the obsolete policies, or what Professor Lee said, export-oriented. So this is scattered because there's no centralized plan for this. And also we experience with there's no leading ministry that coordinates the directions of the industrial development. So do you want the BPNS as our planner, or Ministry of Industries, or coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs, or maybe like now many of regulations comes from the coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment. So there's so many ministries, but there's no leading ministry that leads the development of industries in Indonesia. Another thing, maybe this is the last thing, is there's no preparations to deal maybe with the shift in economic structures, like I said before in the first slides, which maybe have implications for unemployment and regional economy. Okay, I will stop there. Pak Zulfikar, thank you, and back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Andri. Any question from online or offline participants? Any question? No, it's clear. All right, if it is clear, then we're gonna have a break for any question.
Pak Zulfikar,
Yes.
Prof wants to add something, I think.
Okay, Prof, please. Prof Didik, please.
No. Lunch. Prepare for lunch.
Okay, thank you, Prof. All right, if there is no question, we're gonna have a break for the next 1 hour. We will resume at 2:30, and the lunch are ready, and you can enjoy your lunch here. And for those who need to pray, we can pray in this room. It's fine, and we will continue 2:30. Thank you very much.